My name is Ralph Hutchison. I'm the coordinator for the Oak Ridge Environmental Peace Alliance. Thank you, NNSA, TVA, Barry, everyone who invited us here to make public comments. We appreciate the opportunity. The purpose of an environmental impact statement is to provide an analysis which clearly informs the public about the effects of a proposed action on the populations that inhabit the environment. Humans, yes, but also flora and fauna. To be meaningful, that analysis may not rely on simulations and calculations, but must be a real-world analysis. In this instance, that would require dealing with the Tennessee River as it truly is. The draft supplemental EIS fails to calculate the effects of an additional burden of 10,000 curies of tritium to a river system already heavily burdened with contaminants from upstream sources, some of which are attributed to the same Department of Energy and National Nuclear Security Administration that presents the public with this sanitized version of the river we find in the SEIS. Assurances that water meets, quote, drinking water standards provides scant reassurance to a public aware of the cumulative effect of contaminants, much less to the fish, turtles, salamanders, snakes, birds, and other wildlife in this river ecosystem, which have been hammered again and again over the last 5 decades. According to Department of Energy documents, significant quantities of strontium-90 are released into the river system at White Oak Dam, along with tritium and transuranics. Past studies of the Watts Bar Reservoir have documented metals, mercury, pesticides, PCBs, organics, radionuclides, and more in the river. Efforts to contain contaminants in the burial grounds at Oak Ridge National Lab and the old K-25 site have failed spectacularly, with wells and other areas on the far side of the river showing contamination. This week in our papers in Knoxville, we read about 5,000-gallon tankers full of radioactive sludge being hauled from a facility on the far side of the river to be burned in Washington State. The people who live downstream from these operations have a right to a comprehensive documentation of the threats presented in their drinking water. The government has a similar obligation to protect wildlife. It is not enough time and time again to say it's only a little bit of poison in your water, without saying added to the hundreds and thousands of other little bits of poison we've dumped in the water over the years. But what is even more stunning in this regard is that this contamination and the risks it subjects in-stream and downstream populations to, however NNSA attempts to diminish them with calculations, the tritium doesn't go away after all just because it's mixed with a lot of water. It's still there, you just can't find it very easily, but the body that it finds is still impacted by a highly radioactive beta emitter with a particularly insidious capacity to fool the body into thinking it is harmless. Its malignant nature cloaked by its beautiful disguise, the body thinks it's water. And just like that, the source of life is transformed into the source of death. What is most stunning is it is entirely and completely gratuitous, unnecessary, because the United States has no actual need to produce tritium at Watts Bar, Sequoia, or anywhere else for decades. Tritium is available in sufficient quantities to maintain your precious nuclear stockpile for decades to come, and you already possess it in retired warheads and the thousands of bombs and warheads in the strategic reserve, the hedge reserve, or any of the other reserve categories that make up the insanity of the NNSA stockpile management program. Informed experts have suggested there is no actual need for tritium to maintain the stockpile until 2029. And with additional retirements from the stockpile, that number will recede even further into the future. What's more, in an emergency, tritium can be purchased on the commercial market where it's readily available for industrial purposes. In other words, you are doing this because you want to, not because you need to. Possessing the power of the government, unmoored from any accountability to the public on whose behalf you serve, answerable only to the politicians who bow before campaign contributions and corporate sponsors. You can do this, no matter what your SEIS says. But that is not the same as saying you have the right to do it or that you should do it. You do not have the right. If you take it, you are stealing it, and you should not do it. There are many other specific areas of concern that must be addressed before you can finalize your draft. The latest U.S. Geological Survey earthquake hazard maps contradict the assertions about the low likelihood of earthquakes in the supplemental EIS. Researchers at the University of Tennessee have documented several historical Category 6+ earthquakes in the East Tennessee seismic zone since you since you scoped this SEIS. Your SEIS says we've never topped 5.9. The SEIS also mixes apples and oranges, offering us Mercalli, Richter, and G-force data for comparative purposes in a way that shrouds understanding rather than illuminates it. The Oak Ridge Environmental Peace Alliance will provide detailed written comments for the record by September 22nd.
Thank you very much.